Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now I don't know about you, but I'm very excited to play the remastered Assassin's Creed Black Flag launching in July. Until then, well, I thought I'd take a look at the original version, my favourite Assassin's Creed game in the series. Now the cheapest way to play this in 2026 is probably with an Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3, but it is also available on PC and you can find physical releases as well. Now if you take a look at how the game runs on some old school hardware, an i7-3770, 16 gigs of DDR3 and a GTX 570, we can see that with the default settings, basically a mix of everything here at 1366 by 768 at 60 Hz here, then we're getting between 50 and 60 frames per second, and the game still looks pretty good as you can see from this footage. Our i7 is a 4-core 8-thread CPU, the GTX 570 is a few years older and it has 1.28 gigabytes of GDDR5 VRAM. Now the game is capped at 60 FPS by default. We'll talk about this a little more later on. If you want to use lower settings, then it would make more sense to remove this FPS cap. This game is still fantastic looking in my opinion. The atmosphere feels warm, the colour palette is fantastic, and these are just a couple of reasons why this is my favourite in the series. Not to mention, you play as a pirate. I mean, what else could you want from a game? But let's move on to some newer hardware, because I wanted to see how well it runs on a more modern configuration and whether or not there are any performance issues. So the system I've chosen today is my i5-12400F and RTX 4060 machine. This is in pairing with 16 gigs of 3000 MHz dual channel DDR4. Nothing special, a modern sort of mid-range, or I guess you could actually call it entry-level system in terms of modern configurations. Now when choosing a profile, I accidentally typed Stev instead of Steve, which I found quite funny. So we're going to load up Stev and continue where I left off with my i5 and RTX 4060 machine, but not before exploring the options a little bit here. So we're back at 1920 by 1080 now. We are limited to 60 Hz on my 165 Hz display, but we will be fixing this a little later on. Now I thought I could actually change this without a mod by going into the INI files from within the documents folder here and changing a couple of refresh rate options. I mean, we can change the numbers to 165 to match the refresh rate of my monitor, but unfortunately this isn't going to actually make a difference in game. As we can see here, we're using the maximum settings, but we are still capped at 60 FPS, and this combo should be capable of more than that. So I actually quit the game and implemented a mod from Nexus Mods here, which lets us run at 240 Hz. I actually saw this in a Zworms gaming video, saw him test the 5090 the other day, and I thought we probably won't be getting similar performance figures with the 4060, but we should be able to break 100 FPS. And as you can see here, back with the absolute high settings, the maximum settings apart from motion blur, we're looking at pretty much between 100 and 120 FPS on this initial opening level here. This is called Cape Bonavista. Right, let's just take out this last guy over here. Oh my gosh, here we go. Right, there's a couple more over there, as you can see, dipping to the low 90s there. Oh, look at that, 2 for 1 there, and then we'll finish the last guy off before moving on to Havana. Yes, lovely. Now I just want to mention again the settings for the game. We have got everything basically maxed out, including anti-aliasing, but the PhysX option is off entirely because I found that there were some pretty horrific stutters with that enabled. Even when we just enabled the low option, every few seconds there would be a horrible judder with the gameplay. I'd actually call it unplayable in some configurations because it is quite distracting, whereas when we leave PhysX off altogether, it runs smooth as anything, as you can see here. No major performance problems from our i5 and 4060 combo. I'm just going to try and not steer us into a rock. Here we are, lads. Let's just make our way around these sandbanks here. Don't want to ground the ship before we've even got anywhere. I know we can use S to slow down, but nah, we want full speed here, fellas. I feel like I'm handbrake turning this bad boy. There we go. Lovely. Lovely bit of driving. Just piloting. Driving, you don't really drive a ship, I guess, do you? But lovely bit of captaining. I can't remember the correct word, the correct term. Navigating, I don't know. Now I just want to show you one of these boring modern day elements here, because I have to mention the mod that I'm using. It may interfere with a few in-game moments. As you can see, we're stuck in this lift with the mod enabled, so I'd recommend not installing it until after this initial part of the story, or just implementing a 60 FPS cap, moving past this point and then removing the cap again. As we can see, I implemented a 60 FPS cap with Reaver Tuner, and then the game just continued to load. So here we are in Havana now, looking absolutely beautiful. This brings back some serious nostalgic memories with that luscious blue water there, the colourful houses in the distance, the palm trees and the blue skies. We're surrounded by tropical islands here, just following my old mate Steed Bonnet through the busy bustling streets of Havana. Performance wise here, it's actually a little better than it was on that initial Cape Bonavista level, a little bit smoother as well. Okay, so 105 FPS, so it actually came back as about 2 FPS lower, but the percentile lows were 89 and 60, so I think the 0.1% low is a little bit higher in Havana here, so the game is perhaps a little smoother, but there really isn't much of a huge difference at 1080p with the max settings between exploring islands scattered around the ocean and walking through the busy streets of Havana. Here, as you can see, this is certainly more GPU intensive. Our i5 is sitting back relaxing at less than 40% utilization. Our 4060 isn't quite being fully utilized, not at this resolution, but we are seeing respectable performance, and I think overall perhaps not as many frames as I would have expected. Oh, someone's making off with my old mate Steed's sugar, or whatever he's got down there. A pickpocket is on the loose. Let's jump down here and chase him through the streets. And the frame rate is actually sort of getting higher here, I think because we're in sort of more compact areas with less going on. Picking up to over 140 FPS just then. Where you going, mate? Come on. Let's chase him down, see if we can tackle him. Yes, there we go. Alright, oh no. Have I got like every single guard in the area on me now? Yeah. How do I equip my swords, my cutlasses? Yeah, I'm not a fan of the PC controls. I always used to use a controller with this. In fact, I think I played it on 360 back in the day. Ooh, almost got desynchronized then. Yeah, I played it back on 360 or PS3 back in the day. I did have it on PC because I remember running it on an AMD Athlon A4 3300, a very early APU, and I think I experienced like 15 FPS most of the time. That was at 1024 by 768. I distinctly remember playing Assassin's Creed 3 on that same hardware, and that performed about the same. So it wasn't particularly enjoyable in terms of the gameplay experience, but it did mean I got to experience this absolutely legendary game, if not for the first couple of hours on PC before giving up because of the super low frame rate. It was a little bit low even for me back then. Alright, so we're going to change things to 1440p now. We're going to keep the settings at very high, including TXAA set to 4x. That's probably a little bit overkill, to be honest, but I wanted to just crank things up to maximum, apart from PhysX, of course, because it just breaks the smoothness. Let's fire up the Stev profile once more. Can't believe I misspelt my own name, what a fool. Alright, so interestingly, this actually cuts our frame rate down to about 70 FPS, between 70 and 80, maybe a little higher in some areas, so this is certainly a bit more demanding than I anticipated, but I do think it's probably that anti-aliasing option as well. Like I said, it does look good, it's probably a bit overkill, but it looks very nice and sharp. Interestingly, the 4060 still isn't quite being pushed to 99, 100% utilisation. But that could just be the old game engine, I don't know, perhaps it's not that well optimised for modern hardware. Hardware like this didn't exist, of course, when the game came out, but just worth noting, I think. Oh, I love that, kick him off the roof, there we go. Alright, so I've accidentally started a fight with basically all of the guards again. I didn't mean to do this, I swear, and I have once again forgotten how to equip the cutlasses. Oh, Q? Was it Q? There we go. Perfect, let's wipe these guys out. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog in the background. Yeah, he's barking at every... We have like 2 dogs that live behind us as well. I think they're friends really, but they just like to bark at each other. It's just something they like to do, I think. But yeah, that's what it seems like. They wait for each other to start barking in the morning and then they both sort of run out there. But back to the performance of the game, 1440p 1440p. 1440p as well. No major issues thus far. Alright, so we're going to change things to 1440p now. We're going to keep the settings at very high, including TXAA set to 4x. That's probably a little bit overkill, to be honest, but I wanted to just crank things up to maximum, apart from PhysX, of course, because it just breaks the smoothness. Let's fire up the Stev profile once more. Oh, Q? Was it Q? There we go. Perfect, let's wipe these guys out. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog in the background. Yeah, he's barking at every... We have like 2 dogs that live behind us as well. I think they're friends really, but they just like to bark at each other. It's just something they like to do, I think. But yeah, that's what it seems like. They wait for each other to start barking in the morning and then they both sort of run out there. But Let's move on to a bit of hijinks on the high seas here. Now this is actually a far more intensive scene. We're going to see drops closer to 60 FPS when we are pirating and doing pirating things, driving our ship around the stormy seas here is certainly going to cause a few dips and drops, not only with the average but the percentile numbers too. We're still getting plus 60 FPS pretty much all of the time though. If you want to play Assassin's Creed Black Flag, the original version, before the remastered version comes out, perhaps just to experience the OG release, or you just can't wait until July like me, then you're going to have a pretty good time, I think, on most modern hardware. But you may want to consider the PS4 and Xbox One versions as well, which may be easier to find than the PC release and could potentially be a bit more enjoyable because of the controller, but I'd certainly recommend plugging the controller into the PC as well if you are going to play on this platform. As for this one then, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.